Good morning, everybody. Welcome to episode 00039 of Live Live on Wednesday, May the 6th. Happy Star Wars Day on Monday, and then happy Cinco de Mayo yesterday. I don't know what May 6th is, but we'll just call it the day of Live Live. Really cool guest I have this week. Jake Harris is a friend, neighbor, fellow builder, and I'd say, at the core of it, just an entrepreneur in the truest sense of the word. So thanks for being here, Jake. This is gonna be a lot of fun.
No, thanks for having me. I'm excited for the conversation.
Yeah, and I think it's really fun to kind of talk about as you go from a builder to a software developer, fintech, right? Developer, and you're not alone in this world. I think in the world of remodelers who get into technology development. So I think that's a really cool story to kind of hear about. But do you mind if we kind of start in the beginning? Because before you were in construction, were you working in like the corporate world? Like what's kind of your background?
Yeah, so James Madison University, graduated, went to work for Marriott, and then when I was at Marriott, I realized that I was not a very good process person. I was a project person. I like a beginning, a middle, an end. I like novelty. I like new things. And I had construction experience when I was growing up, weekends and summer jobs. And what I realized was very quickly, these hotels have to go through a renovation period every 7 years. So I read the documentation, I learned the contract cycle, and then I started renovating hotels for Marriott and Omni, and we did 100 hotels in 33 states. So I found the cycle, I hit it hard, and I was doing national renovation, lots of road trips, lots of frequent flyer miles. Kids were getting older, and I wanted to come home. And around 2018, we jumped off the road, and I started renovating houses using the same skill set and sophistication that we were renovating hotels. So I teamed up with a couple of investors. We were rocking and rolling on the fix and flips until that market kind of dried up. But like you said, I think there's a number of us that are younger in the millennial group and even younger that basically have agreed that the existing infrastructure, the existing systems, the existing processes don't work as well as they should. And we see an opportunity, and then we just tilt all the way in. So when I was doing the hotels and when I was doing the houses, I realized one key core component is that there's only three inputs that we have in a project: labor, material, and money. And we have a lot of solutions for labor. We have a lot of solutions for material. We don't have any good solutions for money and cash flow. And it was choking out my progress. It was causing delays. It was causing issues. And so I decided to do something about it and make a stab at it.
I love that. That's a pretty cool cycle. And we started in a similar way. I love the hotel model because I've always been really curious about that, because it is pretty repetitive. So what was kind of your role in that work? Did you have a company that was then hired by Marriott operators to renovate?
Right. So in every hotel, you're going to have three people. There's the person who owns the building, the person whose name is on the building, and the person who's operating the building. Sometimes they're all the same. Sometimes they're all three different. So I would find out the operator, because they were typically responsible, and then the asset owner, and then I would contact them. They would hire my company, Harris Construction, to go in and do the renovation. And so we did guest rooms, we did corridors, we did ballrooms, we did restaurants, we did lobbies, we did the whole 9 yards. I stayed out of the outside core and shell, but it was basically the renovations inside.
In 33 different states, so did you take a crew with you?
Yes. So for the majority of the time, we would travel with what I would call a general team. Now, these were multifaceted, multi-trade individuals that could do everything from demo to light drywall, painting, carpet, whatever. And then what we would typically have is we'd have like 15 or 20 guys, and we'd roll them with us, and they would work 7 days a week, and they'd work 10 hours a day, and they would just blast for a good 9 months, and then they'd be off and they'd scatter to the wind for 3 months, and then we pull them back. But this crew, so if I have 10 guys, 2 guys are core on carpet. And so when we're doing carpet, well, they're in charge. Well, then when we go to painting, the other 2 guys are in charge. Then we do drywall, like the other 2 guys are in charge. So what we'd do is we'd have strategic placement. And then when your card came up, when your scope came up, you were the lead guy. And when it wasn't yours, then you would roll behind and you'd either be carrying stuff or pushing stuff or doing whatever.
And then, because this is going to tie into kind of the fintech tools that you've been building. So how were you paid for, because that's a large scale, repetitive job for, corporate clientele. So how are you paid in that scenario? Is it just a lump sum on the whole project? Or is it
we would bid out. So they would typically bring us in 3 to 4 bidders. We'd bid out the scope of work, give them a lump sum contract. Prior to 2013, everything was still very manual. 2013, we got introduced to Textura, which was ultimately bought by Oracle. That was my first introduction to any kind of payment processor or processing paperwork procedures, that kind of stuff. And so I was really intrigued, but I thought it fell short because all it did was take our scope of work, add in percentage completes, hit submit, then have the superintendent hit submit, and then it would send it off to accounting, and then accounting would still stroke us a manual check. I felt it fell short, and that was one of the things that was actually my first introduction to the idea that you could use technology in that aspect of our industry.
Yeah, because we ran into so the early days of LivCo, we were doing the foreclosure rehab work for the institutional investors, not the most glamorous work, right? Is what I would call it. But there was a and I think you were doing very similar stuff in North Carolina, right?
So it was fix and flip, yeah. So still investors, but we were getting them ready for sale.
Yeah, and these guys were converting them to rentals. So it was American Homes for Rent, it was Waypoint Homes, there was Invitation Homes, which is a Blackstone group. It was in Chicago, and so they bought I don't even know the number. And they'd have these kind of construction managers that would walk through and make a scope on an iPad and then hand the scope to me. There was more or less defined unit costs, but then we would need to transcribe that into, we already knew what the bid was because we knew they were going to pay us literally $5 to replace a toilet and labor. Right. But we would then need to transcribe that into labor scopes for our teams. It's very similar. At some point we would start pulling together just a core team that could just repeat this and they knew the language. So we became a little bit of certainly a middleman. We're construction managers, but we were able to be between the sophisticated corporate people that were in the business of buying and moving houses and just didn't have that. They hadn't kind of vertically integrated all that stuff yet. So they needed someone like us to disseminate that information into the guys that are literally getting $5 to replace a toilet and just happy to have a job and go to work every day.
Right.
And then how do we get paid? We would go through whatever their, Salesforce system, and we'd put all the stuff in. We'd have to check all these boxes. Everything existed in these interfaces that were corporate sophisticated that we had to decipher that to then break that down, get paid, and then pay these individual subs with a paper check. Well, right? It literally goes into handing them a check. That is how that world operates, or did, right?
And that's exactly right. Like I said, Textura was the first introduction to a technology-based system, but I hired a director of operations away from a local bank. And we were in Utah in 2016, and I was working on a sophisticated project in Utah, and I didn't know the owner. The owner didn't know me. We didn't have this ongoing relationship. They weren't part of a large organization. It was a one-off hotel. And so I sat there and I had an idea. And to this day, I don't know if it was mine or hers, but we agreed that we were going to go back to our bank and we were going to open a bank account for the project. That was my first introduction to the idea of isolating funds for a job, not bringing it into the normal jobs account and running my jobs account and commingling and everything else. What I'll tell you is that we went back to the owner and we said, hey, listen, you want us to do a multi-million-dollar renovation on this hotel. Here's what we want to do. We want to open a bank account for the project. We want to isolate your funds. We're going to tell you how much we need every month. You're going to give us the money. We're going to spend it. We're going to reconcile it. Everything's going to be viewable by you. Let's do this and let's make this move as fast as possible, because in Utah, everything circles around the speed of snow. Just like with the fix and flip guys, they all want to get done as fast as possible. So speed was very important. And so what we did was we traded that opportunity. I said, you want me to hit this snow season? I need confidence. I need guarantees. I need to make sure that I have the trust of all the team members that they're going to move at the rapid pace that you need them to do. And that was kind of like the grandfather generation or gestation of what became BuildWallet was that first project bank account that we then moved over to the residential investors, because they were also starting to play games and make it difficult for me to do my job. I mean, at one point, I would open up bank accounts for their jobs. I had 7 of them, 7 different checkbooks that I was running around with. And I finally went to, being in technology and being a millennial, I went to my buddy and I was like, there's got to be a way we can put this on the phone. Like, it's 2019. I can track a pizza to my project, but I can't track my project with my phone. There's got to be a way to do this. And lo and behold, he knew a guy who knew a guy, and an MVP later, we were up and running back in 2021.
Well, I think it's a cool kind of thought process, you know, the level, the project wallet, kind of the compartmentalization of it. Because, yeah, as you alluded to, especially in our industry, which is highly fragmented to begin with, so often, I mean, the way it works is everything just goes into a big pile. So the money that comes in and money goes out, it's just this giant pile of money, this huge money that's changing hands, right? Because construction is just naturally expensive. There's stuff that's going out for, obviously, for the trades, for labor. Different people are getting paid in different ways. We have, you know, credit accounts with suppliers. All this stuff is constantly moving. If you don't have your stuff together, you think you have a huge pile of money, but you have a huge pile of money that has, you know, 105% liabilities against it. So you don't actually have that. So when people don't really understand their financials, it's a really easy way, or aren't tracking stuff accurately in cost status and work in progress and all that, all of a sudden they go out and buy a $90,000 truck out of money that they have not earned yet, right?
Right.
So this is a different way to think about it. And, you know, in my head, I think is a really, I'm very visual. So it's a really kind of clean visualization. Like, listen, $200,000 is allocated to that project. It sits right here. This is going to this. This is going to this. This is going to this. This is done. Check it. All the money flows out, right? Is that a really oversimplification of it?
Absolutely. It's isolation and automation. But the one thing that you're missing, and the one thing that I think that a lot of people don't wrap their heads around, is that our existing infrastructure, SaaS platforms and banking, right? Because when most people, when I talk to them about automation or automating cash flow, they go, oh, well, you just connect to my bank account and you do this and you do this. And I said, no, stop. The current infrastructure doesn't allow it to do it. We had to wait for blockchain to become available, because when I went to that tech guy in Durham and I said, hey, I've got all these projects, I've got a sophisticated scope of work, I've got a contract that I want to lock down, here's the financials, here's the flow, here's the phases, everything else. He goes, okay, I'll take a look at it. He came back, he goes, I can do it, but you're going to have to use wallets. And I went, what's a wallet? And he said, well, wallet is this new infrastructure that's on blockchain, which is a cutting edge technology, which up until this point, we've really only had the use case of trading market-based cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, Ethereum, whatever. But if you understand that blockchain is an engine that runs around the world every second, and you can literally attach a digital asset like a stable coin, and you can send it to your friend down the street or across the country or across the world instantly, now we've got a new technology that begs for disruption in our industry, in any industry.
Well, and like I said, I'm a oversimplification visual person. I don't understand what the hell blockchain is, but is that how? Because there's all these different platforms that are moving money now, right? Like Stripe, Zelle, all these different things. Is that basically what you're saying? Is once that technology became available, that allowed clean ways of money transacting?
Yes. So okay. if it's blockchain, I've heard a couple people explain it basically, that says that it's an Excel spreadsheet that's time locked, that everyone has access to and nobody can fabricate, nobody can mess with. And what it does is it tracks the ownership responsibility. So if I send you 5 coins, I attach those coins to a smart contract, which is an if-then program, and I go pay David. David has a wallet. You can receive money all the time, but in order for you to send money, you need to use your signatures and your keys and everything else. but I would send it to you and just push the button, and then within 1 second, you now have ownership of those coins. And the cool thing about coins, and a lot of people are like, well, we don't deal in cryptocurrency. I said, have you been to Vegas? Have you been to casinos? You understand that when you go to the cage and you give them $500 and they give you tokens, right? Casino chips, whoever has those tokens at the end of the night is going back to the cage and getting the money. That's a stable coin. So when I transfer and transition $100 into stable coins, and I give my painter $50, he pushes a button and goes back to the cage, goes back to the coin issuer, and says, I'd like the $5, please, or $50, please. And they get it. And that's the coolest thing. So for me, I was a heavy duty project manager. I was deep into the vision. I was deep into the systems and the processes and procedures. And then a new technology came along and I went, wow, we can change this. We can make this better. We can make this improve. We can make this work. And so the idea for project wallets started to really bubble in my head. And I said, well, if a project wallet sits outside of the contractor, the owner, the subs and suppliers, but can automate all of the contracts and all of the cash flow through it, now we can use trust to really build faster. So the benefit, the true product that we have is giving people this trust. And when they have trust, that's the key component to building faster.
Yeah, I like that. It's a level of trust, transparency to it as well. We had a client years ago that we gave them the construction contract, and they looked at us and they said, how do you know that we're going to actually pay you? And I'm like, I guess I've never really thought about that. We just assume like we have trust in our clients that they're going to pay us. And, knock on wood, they do, but yeah, anyone could enter into a construction contract and then say, I'm not going to pay you. Now our recourse on that is in Illinois. I mean, we can lien their house, right, and go through a whole legal proceeding. Like there's obviously, we're covered in terms of our risk, but yeah, it's not when clients are paying us directly for a project and it's not going through escrow, it's not going through a bank, it's not going through all that, they feel like they're at risk that we're not going to complete the project, right? Or I don't know what the fears are that people have of contractors, but I think it's that we're going to leave them and abandon them. There's the fear that we're going to charge them a whole bunch of extra money that they weren't thinking about, right? And so there's all these fears that they have. How come we don't have a fear that they're not going to pay us?
Well, I don't think the construction industry, especially in the general contractors level, because I'm talking to some commercial contractors, I'm talking the real value strike here is not at the owner contractor level. The real value strike is contractor, subcontractor, and supplier level. So the subcontractors typically are forced, if you look at the habit loop, the trigger is we yell at them and say, hey, get on the job site. The action is they do the work. The reward is now 30, 45, 60 days delayed. So we're literally disrupting natural psychology, and we're not promoting good working behavior. And so if we take psychology and technology and we go, hey, listen, Mr. Subcontractor, I'm going to issue you a funded subcontract. We're going to preset 3 invoices. You get $1,000 when you start. You get $2,500 when you finish this milestone and $2,500 at the end. Go. They will sprint as fast as they can to that first milestone. Take photos, submit the invoices, and the minute that the contractor approves that work by pushing approve to pay, the money is instantly hits the subcontractor's wallet. Bing. And now what are they going to do? They're going to sprint to the next milestone. Then they're going to sprint to the final milestone. So it was really a situation where it wasn't necessarily about the relationship between the owner and the contractor, because we can lien them and they can sue us, and we can do all this, and we have this mutual, standoff with knives relationship, right? Cash flow chicken, all those things that we've played for years. But it really became a situation that if the subs and suppliers, which make up the bulk of the workload on the contract, on the project, if they feel trust and we change their emotional state to a state of trust using automation, now they're going to build faster. Because a good example, if you're a painter and you've got one project that's using a project wallet like BuildWallet, if you're using a project wallet like us, and you've got another project where you're just, I'll get paid whenever, I have to submit my invoice and do all this, which project are you going to attend today? One that you're going to get paid and can possibly get paid today as soon as the contractor approves the work, or something that I have to now go home, submit the invoice, wait for approval, and argue, follow up, all these other things. And so it's an automation of contracts and cash flow that allows us to go from a risk position or a questionable position to trust, which the byproduct of that is you're going to build faster.
Yeah, I think that general to subcontractor relationship is so friggin' huge. And when I was at the NARI conference the other week, and I was on a panel talking about uncertainty, and the labor force is always continues to be a major uncertainty, right? And that was like one of the big questions is, how do you maintain that trade partner subcontractor relationship? And the number one thing, I mean, there's a lot that goes into it, and just being a good person and helping our trades improve, and knowing that you're going to keep them busy and sophisticate or help them improve, but pay them quickly, right? Like, it's literally, there just shouldn't be all this stuff of what about this? And it's complicated because a lot of times they'll have extras, and we have to go through that stuff, and then have to make sure that that's part of a change order and all these different things. And you have work orders and all these things that need to be checked. But for sure, that can be simplified just in order to get them their money faster. Because that's really, and we deal with it all the time. I mean, they need start deposits.
Here's the analogy, though. We always tell people we're a factory in a field, right? So we're a factory in a field. We're going to your house. We're bringing our factory, or a mobile factory. We use all these factory analogies. What factory in the world have you ever seen where the employees have to generate and bring their own time cards? It doesn't work. And so what I find very, very funny about our model is that we're a very top-down method, right? So I'm going to give everyone the schedule. I'm going to give everyone the specs. I'm going to give everyone the information. I'm going to give you the material. I'm going to give you everything. By the way, when you get a chance, can you send me an invoice? Generate and send me an invoice. And it's this bottom-up receipt. It's going against the flow. And we now have to become, as contractors, we're now reactive to catch the invoice. Now we have to argue, are you 38% done? Are you 42% done? Do I have the money for this? All these factors. And what they say is you can't scale a complex system. We have a very complex system. So what BuildWallet hopes to do with our Project Wallet dApp is we want to gigacast this whole thing. We want to simplify it down, remove the moving parts, make it super simple, put it on a platform that nobody really understands, but is an amazing application for what we're doing. All the subs get wallets. The contractor has a wallet. The owner has a wallet. The project has a wallet. And that's where we go through to automate the contracts and cash flow. But by doing that, it's not just the technical aspect. For me, it was the improvement in the behavior. It was the improvement in the personalities. People wanted to get the job done. They wanted to move faster. They wanted to complete because they knew that the reward was right behind the action, which using James Clear and the habit circle and the habit loop, they want to do it faster. They want to come back. They want to do it again for you. Well, now we've changed behavior, because any good technology is going to change the way people think, feel, and act. We start thinking about automation. We're going to feel trust, and we're going to act faster. And that's the three components of what we're dealing with.
I like it. Make it easier too. That's what it's all about. That's the other piece. You pay subs quickly. That's part of it, but also just making their lives a little bit easier. That was a great analogy of having to create the invoice. I go through it all the time. I get a text message. Like, can I get a check for $1,900? I'm like, yeah, just send me an invoice. And they're like, just give me the check. But to go through the proper channels in the system, I just need an invoice.
But here's the difference. In BuildWallet's Project Wallet app, you sit there and arrange it with the subcontractor at the time of issuing the subcontract. And you go, hey, what payment terms, what milestones can we set up and for how much? Yeah. So again, it's a top-down flow as opposed to this bottom-up reactivity. And then the subcontractor literally downloads the app on their phone, sets up their wallet, and then basically uses the app in order to open the invoice and go, I'm at this milestone. I'm going to take 3 photos and send them to David. David's going to step on the job site and go, yeah, this all looks great. I approve to pay. And that instantly releases money to the sub's wallet. And that's what we're doing, is we're taking out multiple layers. So think about it. No more accounts payable, no more accounts receivable, because the owner has to fund that phase before we can even issue the subcontract. So fund, work, approve to pay. The owner funds a phase. The contractor, subs, and suppliers do the work. The contractor approves the invoices to pay the subs and suppliers. The owner approves the phase to pay the contractor. So I've taken I've been at this for 17 years being an entrepreneur. I've taken all of our pain points, all of the visions, all the issues, all the goals and missions, and structured them onto a platform that up until this point we didn't understand at all. But now we have a real use case for blockchain, because we can give everyone a wallet. We can automate the contract flow. We can automate the cash flow. And it is a game changer. It's kind of like electricity in the dark ages. It's air compressors when we were framing. It's a new technology that unlocks a new opportunity. And once I saw it and I saw the value, I couldn't turn away. I couldn't go back to what I was doing. I had to go into both feet. Had to.
Love it. Well, and on that note, I'm curious, just as an entrepreneur and a builder, so you're a licensed North Carolina general contractor. Is there a percentage of your time that you're able to give to building versus BuildWallet, or does it fluctuate?
It does. I mean, as everything else, right? There's some weeks that we're needed more on site than we're not needed. So I've been able to maintain a remodeling company here in Raleigh that did, just under $1 million last year. And it's been nice. It's been able me to not only to continue to, as they say in the tech world, eat my own dog food, but test things on the field, test it with my subcontractors, understand what works, what I like, what I want to change. And then we continue to make innovations with my CTO and dev team.
That's cool. And then what is your software development background? Have you just learned as you started to get involved in this? Have you just absorbed?
Yeah, I mean, I think that back to what we were saying, I think that a lot of people are left brain, which means they're tactical in nature, right? Especially in this industry. We understand board feet, we understand gallons of paint, we understand, squares of shingles and all of those things. I tend to be a little bit more right brain. I'm abstract. And I had to do that when I was understanding the workflow and the cash flow from the sophistication of running multiple hotel projects and making sure that I wasn't going to fall on my face. So that aspect of that abstract concept, understanding cash flow, understanding workflow, and how do I get the right people in different parts of the country to all work together and have the money to support them, it forced me to really generate some right brain neuron firing. And I've always just been curious. I like to solve problems. I look for win-win solutions. That's kind of my superpower, is I can solve a problem with a win-win scenario. And not many people do. It's usually win-lose in that fixed mindset. I have a growth mindset. I want to win-win so everybody can grow and become better.
Well, and what's interesting too, because you've had experience kind of in the B2B world, more or less, and with Marriott and all of that, and then you have the B2C world, which has its own. They all have their own pluses and minuses, but they're also very different. Are there really, what have you learned in kind of trying to explore the business to business realm of what you're building out, right? Because this is the idea, like this is implemented by a company like LivCo, right? Or are we the ones taking the lead on it, or is it subcontractors? I'm assuming it's the generals themselves.
What's interesting is I have more subcontractors recommending me to general contractors than I do general contractors recommending me to subs. So imagine having your sub walk up to you and go, "Hey, can we use this?" Like that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And we're very thankful for all the subs that are recommending us and referring us. What I find, having been a mid-scale, small, commercial contractor, and then a moderate renovation remodeler, it's definitely a mindset. There are people in this market that still think like consumers. And when you're a consumer and you're buying as a consumer, all you look at is cost. All you look at is the implementation. You don't really see what I think the B2B consumer sees, which is, what's the value? What's this going to bring me? How can I leverage this? So I find that I have one of two conversations very quickly. I have people who have a fixed mindset, who believe that for me to win, they have to lose. And then I have B2B consumers who are looking for the upside, where they go, hey, we can both win together. And I find that those innovators, those early adopters, and the people that are looking for the B2B and the win-win scenario, they're the adopters. They're the ones who are looking at this going, wow, I didn't know it could do that, but now that you've showed me and you've built this out, we really need to take a hard look at this and find out if this could advance our team.
I love it, man. This is great. Well, as it's always on our show, it's a 30-minute-ish show that always runs long. So we're going to go long if you're cool with it, because we have to talk about how we met.
Please.
I want to hear your version of it.
So I was standing outside with a couple of the neighbors, and a new guy moved into the neighborhood. He had moved out an old friend, and his family came walking down, and he introduced himself as an architect builder. And I never heard an architect builder before as an introduction. So I was incredibly interested, and I wanted to walk over and say hello. So I went ahead and then I looked you up, and I said, architect builder from Chicago. This is going to be an interesting conversation. Bought the house 3 houses up from me. And I went, okay, I'm going to ask him to lunch or ask him to coffee. And as is always, since I'm a process and procedure person, I keep a directory of resources and a sequential schedule of my scope of work. And I've handed that directory out to a number of people to help them use good qualified people that I've tested and road tested and made sure are going to be good to go. And I also want the subcontractor to benefit by getting more work from people that I trust. And so the opportunity and what I wanted to do was to extend a welcome to the neighborhood and get you a copy of my directory, so that should you need tested resources in this market, you had them. And that was my goal.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. I mean, it was, I don't know if it's remodeling karma or what, but sometimes you're spending so much time trying to figure something out, and then the remodeling gods throw something in your lap, which would be Jake Harris's subcontractor and vendor list. But yeah, I mean, some background on that, because I moved, for people watching, LivCo primarily operates in Chicago, but my wife and I are from the East Coast and I'm from the Southeast. So we had a kind of a personal plan as our kids were getting older to get back to the Southeast. So moved to Raleigh about 4 years ago with a very basic plan to eventually start doing work in North Carolina. So year one was to make sure that LivCo Chicago was operating. So I still go back fairly often. Year two, my wife and I purchased a house that I think needed some significant repair. And so if you're going to do significant repair, why not, go crazy with it, which is kind of what we did. So our first project in trying to figure out how we're going to build out a trade base and all that was our house. And everyone's like, how are you going to find trades? I'm like, I don't know. I'm sure a neighbor will just give me a list of all of his subs. So that really was obviously, it was, eat your own dog food. It was, we don't want to test run all of what we do on, first time clients. So we were able to really, work with Jake, who has just been more than generous. I'll reach out and be like, hey, how about this guy for siding? And you're like, no, you don't want to use that guy for siding. Because in our world, it depends on the project type. Everything is so different. There's certain guys that are great for new construction. There's certain guys that are great to bring into a small bathroom, certain framers that are good for one thing and maybe not for another one. And, you kind of have that knowledge and that list of all these people you've worked with for over a decade. And yeah, I just can't say thank you enough. I mean, it was unreal. And as you know, Antonio still works with us. Antonio came from your list.
They're all great people. My heart goes out to that market, which is probably another reason why I'm so interested in helping them, because I back to the brains. These guys are all tactical people. They don't understand cash flow models, invoices, certificates of insurance. And you and I have both been guilty of pulling them down and being like, hey, come here, let's sit down on my computer and let me help you with a business model. Let me help you with, your taxes. Let me help you with, you're pulling a permit. We all bleed for these guys because they bleed for us. And so I have a huge affinity for my sub base suppliers. I mean, I recommend them as often as I can because I want them to succeed. And when I saw my neighbor moved in and I'm like, hey, if this is helpful for you, fantastic. These are all great people. I'd love to see them teamed up with somebody who's good and needs their help.
Yeah. And to your original point too, like none of us have enough work to keep these people busy all year round. Like it just doesn't necessarily work that way because I'm not always drywalling a house all the time. There's different phases. So we want to keep them busy, and of course, I think you had a project going on at the same time. I'm like, Jake gets dibs.
Yeah.
If Jake needs someone to do concrete, go to Jake's first and then come to my project. But no, it's really cool. And since then, we've done 3 more projects, using so many of those people, understanding them better, helping them improve. And then also, through them and their network expanding to just really get some trades. Cause down here, man, there's I think you talked to me about it when we had lunch, right? Like there's new construction trades, and that is its own thing because of all the new building that goes on down here. The remodeling trades are hard to find, and they're really good if you can find them, and they love doing that stuff. They work really hard. They have pride in what they do, but they're hard to find because so many people just go into the factory model of panelization and apartment building.
Well, the 3 different areas are new construction, remodeling, and then service work. And service work is $600 for an hour to change out your chandelier, white glove service, tarps everywhere. New construction is we're going to blow it out and leave a mess. That remodeling work is really tough because it also is seasonal. And so it's really difficult to find people that are going to stick in that area. So cultivating that list has taken me years to do. And we shared amongst the remodelers group. I'm not part of Remodelers Advantage. I was part of the remodelers over at the NAHB. And so getting in that association or leveraging that association network and being able to tag up with our people. And we do it the same way, just like you and I did. So it's getting the right people and keeping them employed so that they can continue to support us.
I know I'm way behind on Remodelers Council events. I think it's been like over a year since I've been to one, but got to get back in. I know Luke over at Wake is a big part of that too. And he's also been awesome and super helpful. It's just a testament, obviously to you and your level of character, but I think the majority of our industry wants to see each other succeed, and we're willing to share within reason. I'd always joke, like we had this Mason back in Chicago who was like really hard to get a hold of, but he was incredible. And once you got him, he would knock out of the park, reasonably priced, just the best. So people would ask me for subs. I'm like, I'll give you anybody except Bogdan the Mason. You can't have him. So all of us have like a couple of those that we can't. But for the most part, we want to see everybody succeed and elevate the industry. Yeah, and help the guys who are really in the trenches doing the work and try and make their lives easier and try and give them a little bit more even flow. And they get beat up by companies all the time, right?
But cash flow seems to be the biggest problem from the subs and suppliers. So like you, the way that I show appreciation to my sub and suppliers, I make sure that I pay them quickly. I even advance them money. I help them out because I always hear the horror stories about, well, so-and-so owes me 10 grand. So-and-so's owed me 20 grand for 2 months. This, that, and the other. And I'm like, how are these guys supposed to outfit and field the team and grow if they don't have their basic finance? And again, based on their brain psychology, these are not strong people in the cash flow and the abstract community. They're tactical people, and so we have to kind of help them out. And I think that's a strong passion of mine. I will continue to fight for them because if we can help them, they will turn around and help us. And that's how we can hopefully fix part of our lack of resource in the subs and suppliers for our community.
Love it, man. This is really cool. What a great conversation. I really appreciate it, Jake. I know we've been talking about this for a while, and you accepted an invite to finally come on. So this is great.
It's a great show.
If people want to find you and learn more about BuildWallet, can you give us kind of some info there?
Yeah, buildwallet.com, and I'm Jake Harris. And I've changed my title on LinkedIn because I want to really sponsor the fact that I'm the project wallet engineer, and I think that that's really the thing. We had a long debate about that. What is Build Wallet? Is it the main event? It's not the main event. Project Wallets is the main event, and I'm just a project wallet engineer at Build Wallet. So buildwallet.com, you can find us, book a demo, take a look. And we're going to continue to update and put out more videos as we've now gone through our re-release on blockchain. And that's why I'm taking the opportunity to meet as many people as I can and spread the good news.
Love it. Thanks again, man. This has been great. We'll talk
awesome. Really
very
appreciate
soon.
It.
Thanks, man. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.